Good morning. My name is Džulin Sidik. I'm the music expert working at RoundGlass LLC and co-chair of Arts, Humanities, and Culture at the World Academy of Art and Science. I'm going to be taking you through a new pedagogical framework, which I'm working on for more inclusive music education, and it revolves around the concept of understanding music as both culture and sound. So first of all, why? Why do we need, what is the need for more inclusive music education? We need to understand that music is more than notes on a page. It's personal, it's cultural, it's cognitive, it's social, and its meaning are understood in context and cultural relevance. And we have existing minority populations, for example, populations of Arab descent in Germany and France, African American and Latin American populations in America, and exponentially growing migrant populations, where the UN Migration Report has estimated that 1 in every 30 people is a migrant. If we understand that music is cultural and its meaning is understood in context, if we understand the value of engaging relevant and meaningful education in order to improve student learning outcomes, then there is definitely a need for inclusive music education, creating environments that foster a sense of safety, belonging, connection, and participation. Equality is much more than filling out an equal opportunities form or using politically correct language. In fact, the inequalities that we are dealing with are structured into the educational system. So if we're really going to solve them, we're not going to solve them with politically correct language alone. We need to address how this systemic phenomenon of inequality is taking place. So we need to address, first of all, that the syllabi itself is coming from its own historical context. Within, Europe and North America, UK, ABRSM, GCHE, it's revolving around Western musical theory, with world music being taught, for example, as a side subject. And it will always be a side subject, and it will maintain that hierarchy unless we actually address the need, the situation systemically and create more inclusive syllabi. So by recognizing the priorities and assumptions in the syllabi and creating new ones, which are capable of correlating diverse forms of musical practice and enabling participation, then we will not have genuinely inequality happening. We will always have problems with inclusion because of the way that our working methods have been structured. And besides the actual content, we also need to take into context teaching models, dealing with hierarchical teaching models and creating more co-creative ones, recognizing all things in context, including ourselves as teachers. So I want to talk to you now about if we address the inequalities and what's causing the lack of inclusion systemically. There are 3 primary pillars. Understanding that nobody is an expert on diversity. Everyone has their own background, and we want to celebrate diversity, put ourselves as teachers in context, and understand that we are co-learners. I can tell you some of my most amazing learning experiences, learning about my students' background and the joy of taking on that position as being a co-learner. Getting rid of hierarchical structures which have been, historically embedded in our system can be a joyful, exploratory, creative, and wonderful experience when you open up to creating more of a co-learning environment and being a facilitator of learning experiences rather than the authority on the subject, because no one's an authority on diversity. We are all, to manage that, we have to co-learn and learn about our students, right? By culturally relevant pedagogy only works when you learn about your student population. Where do they come from? What kind of music do they listen to? What does that music mean to them? How is it performed? How do they feel? What are we doing to enable participation, right? Putting the students' needs at the center rather than, having just the demands of the curriculum, and creating that capacity for engaging culturally relevant materials and pedagogy. And last but not least is what I spoke about previously, which is designing new curriculum frameworks. So if we maintain curriculum which have hierarchies, assumptions, and priorities which are hegemonic and which create a priority minority structure, then we're not going to genuinely enable inclusive environments. We have to address this issue, and it's a complex issue. And I'm going to be suggesting one pathway as a way to start for musical syllabi to be able to correlate diverse forms of musical practice rather than have a primary subject of musical theory and world music and other forms of music making on the side. It should be a framework designed to correlate diverse forms of musical practice. So the framework that I'm using is, once again, looking at music as both culture and sound. And the first thing I want to talk about is culture. So culture essentially means that we're putting everything into context. And I've in fact found that this is a very stimulating and engaging thing to do. So when you present a piece of music, present what that music is in context. This is the time period of history that it came from. These are the people that it was written by. And that can often very much help in getting students engaged in the content. Inviting the students to share the music that they listen to, the music from their background, and understanding and allowing them a space where they can talk about, where that music comes from, what it means to them, and understanding that musical meaning is understood in context. What is the context is the lens through which the meaning is created, viewed, and experienced. And the next thing, rather than just context being something we do in ethnomusicology or in social sciences, it is actually a practice of engaging the equality and inclusivity in the classroom by saying, I'm going to share a piece of music, here's its context, by saying, hi, my name's Džulin Sidik, this is my musical background as a teacher, this is where I come from, and being a co-participant, right? So putting ourselves in context as well. Context as a vehicle to enable meaningful engagement. So the current work which I'm undertaking, I'm creating teacher trainings for understanding culturally relevant pedagogy and creating new teacher trainings for how to create diverse and inclusive curriculum for oral, rhythm, and improvisational training. I'm doing this with the RoundGlass Learning Initiative. And the framework that I'm using has two primary pillars: looking at music as social life by understanding modalities of musical performance. Okay, for example, samba music is a participatory genre. So how good the music is not by how virtuosic it is or how big the audience claps. How good the music is based on how many people join the samba. So if a lot of people join the samba, it means it was a good samba. If nobody joins the samba, then it's not a good samba. So like, what is the criteria, for this performance? What is the goal of it? For example, in Indian classical music, or actually, I'll talk about one that I know specifically, which is Baul music. It's a folk genre of West Bengal. The practice of music making is not as much about an audience at all. And it's not even about how good it sounds. It's about using the sound and the music as a vehicle for self-learning, a self-learning process. And that's how if you have taken significant steps in your self-knowledge through that musical activity, then it was good, because the goal of the performance is different, and therefore the criteria in which they understand and measure it is different. This is drawing on Thomas Torino's work, who is an ethnomusicologist and sociology of music. So I look within the framework that I'm currently working on, I look at the modality of music making. What's the goal of this modality of music making? What's its context? What's its goal? And what is the criteria by which we say this piece of music is good? Because different modes of music making have different goals and different criteria by which they understand themselves. And by working in this way of acknowledging diverse modalities of performance, we're able to correlate very diverse ways of diverse forms of musical practice into one framework. So that's the diversity inclusion piece. The unifying piece, that I'm working on, is basing it on an understanding as sound as the unifying piece. This is a wonderful way to enable more interdisciplinary learning across arts and sciences. It can be a very exciting thing, but when we make sound as the base of music education, we enable more interdisciplinary training. We also enable more collaboration. And it's a unifying piece because sound is at the center of all music, because music is sound. So by creating a more scientific, objective center as the base, which invites interdisciplinary collaboration, and then having a very sociological structure for understanding diverse forms of musical performance, this is the framework that I'm working with and developing, still in progress, of a framework understanding music as culture and sound, as a framework of having a syllabi capable of unifying whilst being inclusive of multiple forms of musical practice, and having this able to be housed in one roof. Like I said, I'm currently creating teacher trainings for this, with cultural pedagogy, as well as within the domains of oral, rhythm, and improvisation, looking at through this lens of performance modalities, and on top of a scientific base. And it's currently proving to be pretty effective. It's not the only framework, but this is the framework which I am bringing forward currently and working on. It has its challenges and opportunities. I think the opportunities are fantastic in terms of culturally relevant pedagogy, engaging students' backgrounds, engaging music that is relevant to them, being able to value diverse forms of musical practice. I can tell you that I'm half Bengali, I'm half Bangladeshi. And music, Bengali folk music, it was the way that I connected with my family, which I understood our history and our values. And I went to school and was basically told that if I want to be a real musician, then this is the method that I have to learn, and this is the theory that I have to learn, and this is the technique that I have to learn. And so this music that was so meaningful to me and personal to me, and the way that I connected to my family, was not as valid. And I can tell you that that has a very big effect on students. And it had a big effect on me, and part of why I'm doing this work. So we have to be really conscious of the effects that hierarchies can have. And by improving culturally relevant teaching, increasing student engagement, by creating environments where teachers are co-learners, where everybody and everything is put into context, having that equal ground, creating really meaningful participation and co-learning is a very fertile and fruitful ground for enabling very creative and even transformative learning experiences. Creating new curriculum capable of correlating different modes of musical performance means we can also tap into their respective benefits. For example, in Bengal, I'll go with what I know. In Bengal, there's something called balagan, which is teaching songs. It's an oral tradition. It's not written down. To be a balagan teacher, you have to know at least It's usually around 1,500 to 2,000 songs by heart, and these people are capable of, usually they're capable of memorizing and playing back to you. If you play 5 minutes of music, they will play back to you the exact same 5 minutes of music. Their oral skills are that good. I mean, I've seen in the Western system people play back about, 30 seconds to 1 minute of music, and then they can't remember how it goes. These people have incredible oral capabilities. So when you honor different forms of music making, you honor different forms of musical skills. Each performance modality has its own set of musical skills, right? So we're able to tap into that when we are inclusive of diverse forms of music making. By having sound as a base, right? Having both, the social cultural aspect and sound as a base, we have increased possibilities for interdisciplinary learning and holistic student development. So when we can understand sound as the base, looking at music emotionally, psychologically through the cultural part, and scientifically developing multiple aspects, multiple cognitive skills, both analytical and imaginative. So it increases the possibilities for interdisciplinary learning and holistic student development. And then we also have the very important better integration of migrants and minorities. Creating a safe environment, creating an environment which fosters a sense of belonging, where people feel included, where the framework you're utilizing opens engagement and participation, breaks down barriers, allows people to share and feel connected and socially integrate into the environment where they are. This has a number of opportunities with it that I feel are very important for addressing not just issues in the classroom, but the wider issues of our society. It will not come without its challenges. A lot of schools do not have are not skilled up in these kinds of competencies. So there's going to be a big learning curve involved with teacher trainings required at scale, new policies within schools, having a dedicated equalities officer. It's going to take a lot of training. It's a big learning curve and change for a number of institutions. And I think also the big challenge is coming to a consensus and bringing forward the implementation of a new syllabi, which is designed to correlate diverse forms of contribution. So it's not going to come without its challenges, but I think the opportunities and the benefits make this profoundly worth it. It's worth the challenge, and it's worth enough people coming together if we have the values of diversity, of inclusion, of knowing the kind of magic that can be created by celebrating diversity in the classroom, then I think it is a challenge worth taking on. So thank you very much for your time. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and comments, and have a wonderful day.